2 down, 1 to go.
Ready? Next one. Okay, we will call to order the meeting for the Shenandoah City Council, Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020, 7 p.m. For the record, we'll call the roll and notice that everybody is here. We're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you'd like to stay standing with us, we'll say a quick invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Dear Lord, we come before you tonight, and as always, we start off by saying thank you. Thank you for your grace, for your love, for your forgiveness. Please place those on our heart tonight as we make our way through this agenda. Please help us to make the best decisions we can for the residents that we are here representing. We're thankful to the city staff, to our strategic partners, to everybody that serves, everybody that's here, and everybody that's online. People that are committed to making Shenandoah a better place to live, play, pray, and work. We pray all these things in your Son's name, and all God's people said,
Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody here tonight. We will move into item 5, which is citizens forum, but I didn't have anybody sign up, so nobody's wanting to speak. Okay, well, y'all know by now that we have a second one at the end of the meeting, so if you change your mind, please feel free to sign up. Item 6, council inquiry. Does anybody have anything during this inquiry section that you would like to bring up? No? Okay. Well, then that moves us right into item 7, which is the presentation of the Municipal Development District's monthly report.
You forgot to say it's your favorite part this time.
It is my favorite. It's my favorite report. I'll put it that way.
Well, you can see by the graphics, we're coming to the closing end. So most of the projects are at or nearing completion. So the research forest lift station is about to kick off. Impact fee study. They had a meeting last night, but this is the June report, so I don't have an update for you there. We're going to see the water rate study tonight. Sewer collection model has been presented to staff, and we'll be seeing that next month. Longer term, we're looking at the water plant 2 booster pump design, so we're actually waiting for the delivery of the pump at this point. And the IDC rework is ongoing, and we're expecting to have that reviewed by P&Z in August. The really long-tailed ones, probably the biggest note is on David Memorial Phase 2 that the Corps has assigned us a project manager, so that's a significant step forward. And tonight, MDD did not take action on anything. Again, we reviewed the CIP. That's everything.
Thank you, Ron. Does anybody have any questions for Councilman Raymaker? No? Okay, well, with that, once again, thank you for your work in putting this together. It's an outstanding report.
We're going to have a new slide next month, too. So
oh, nice.
Something that'll tell the running budget for MDD.
I like it. Okay, we will move into item 8, which is discussion and possible...
I didn't even see Lisa cringe on that one.
It takes more than that to phase her. We will move into item 8, which is discussion and possible action regarding the following, and we're going to break these up into 2. We'll start off with item 8A, which is excess debt collections for 2019. Lisa, you want to take this one, or?
Sorry. Mayor and Council, this is a yearly approval that we must complete per the Texas Property Code to keep up with the truth in taxation laws.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod, I have a second by Councilman Brought. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 8B, certification for debt service collection rate for 2020-2021.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Brought to approve. I have a second by Councilman Fletcher. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 9, discussion regarding the 2020-2021 proposed budget. This is a discussion only.
Council, we discussed the other departments at the last meeting. This is the remaining part of the operating budget, police, court, development, technology, and CVB. If any members wish to circle back and discuss any of the other departments, you're free to do so. We also have a discussion of capital projects if you wish to do so. And the first item is police.
You looking for questions,
Are
or
there
are we
any
going to get a
questions on that?
presentation, or?
Well, I don't know, you all should have received by email today the comparison sheets that shows you the changes. It's revised since the last time. If anyone has any questions about the budget or of these changes, and Troy is here to answer those questions.
Note on the comparison sheets, the only thing that did change was that 27th payroll accrual, I did the net and I took it out of the actual expenses, so it gave more of a true-up percent of increase or decrease from last year's budget
And it's showing down now about almost 2%.
for PD.
Yeah, under the uniforms and safety gear, Troy,
Yes.
how were you able to make this 33% reduction?
We just, the management of inventory, we saw that, we had a surplus in a lot of items. So due to that fact, we just didn't order stuff that we didn't need.
Likewise, you had another 33% reduction on the equipment with the Tahoes?
Yes, sir. So with the Tahoes, typically we have ordered 3 vehicles in the past. However, this time we had a Silverado that was due to be replaced. However, at looking at it, it only had 38,000 miles. So what we did with it was we went ahead and moved it to a 7-year replacement vehicle versus replacing it at this time.
That's a patrol vehicle that's not ready for pursuit, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's why you can rent that to a 7 years as opposed to a 3 to 4 year.
Absolutely, yes.
And then likewise, under the operating supplies, you were able to cut that 43%. So how did you do that? The blood draw kits and the evidence and property room supplies. Was that again the inventory?
Let me find my page.
Page 27.
Okay, with that, it's just the blood draw kits. We didn't need as many blood draw kits. And I think the price was, from previously, was overinflated.
Okay, great. And then the only place that I really saw a significant increase was the public relations, but there's an explanation for that.
Yes, absolutely. So what happened with that, because due to the COVID, some of our vendors haven't been able to provide services at free of charge as they have in the past. And due to that, we're having to budget for extra costs for tents, tables and chairs and such. And then we also allocated money towards the expo as well. So we added that to it, the safety expo.
That's all I had.
I just wanted to comment that I like the breakdown on the overtime rather than, in the past, we've had this block, one lump sum deal. It's nice to see, and I really, really appreciate the fact that we can actually see what it is or, the overtime charges are. And it's nice, I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'd always seen like a bucket of dollars and not the
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
and I know that
Standard box and you
I've gotten a
open it
lot
up.
more clarifications too, on like, well, some of that was for special events as we went
Right.
over last time, and, yeah.
Right, I was going to ask y'all that, if y'all appreciated that.
I do, this is so nice.
Yes.
It's easier for me to break it down in hours, so, versus dollars, so that's why I did it that way.
So let me ask you this question, since we're talking about hours and dollars. When they're working overtime, I'm assuming that's going to be different based on the level of officer, right?
That's
It's a
correct.
percentage of their salary, and so we're just calculating, I guess, in the average,
Yes.
like a
Correct.
sergeant?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing?
We
Is that-
take all hourly and then do the average, what their overtime would be. And it went up last year. Last year it was 43. I think it's 47 now.
It's 47.16.
Yeah. I love decimals.
To be specific.
But just to piggyback on that conversation, I did send you guys a breakout, how it would look on the actual budget report. Is that how you want it to be presented?
Is that the Excel sheet?
It was a PDF,
The PDF, okay.
and it just did a snapshot of PT's overtime GL accounts from the budget. And I tried to match it as closely as the description he gave me.
No,
Is that
looks
fine?
good. Yeah, I like the way that looks.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just trying to get an idea of, there's some, I'm gonna call strictly police overtime, your training, court time, those kind of things that are, but again, it's police overtime. And then there's overtime that we stick in the police budget that really, if we didn't have an event, that money wouldn't be spent. If we didn't have, Halloween Safe Streets, right? We wouldn't spend that money. If we didn't have National Night Out, we wouldn't spend that money. So it helps me to see, yes, there is some overtime here, but it's not as big as it is. And the real reason we're spending that much overtime is because we believe that these events are very, very important and useful for our community to have. And so it's very useful to go, of all these hours, I mean, special events, I'm not sure traffic control is special events, but special events is the bulk of it. That's the majority of our overtime, or I would not say the majority of overtime, but the largest contributor there other than shift coverage. So that's very helpful, I think.
Any other questions?
With police or with others?
Police?
Just police, yeah.
Nothing else for police.
Okay.
But thank you for the cost reductions. Good job.
Yeah.
We can move on to
The
municipal
police
court.
versus, so we're not asking for a new officer this year, right?
No, sir. we're
And
not.
the idea is, and this is kind of a weird play because it crosses departments. The idea is if we move to a civilian
Code enforcement.
code enforcement, that effectively frees up, not quite, but roughly one officer's worth of time. Is that your impression?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's
So
going to
we are in effect adding an officer this year in terms of hours. If we later on decide to approve this civilian code enforcement, we would be in effect adding an officer's worth of hours to the streets.
It would add significant amount of time to us, yes.
Okay. I wanted to make that clear, and I guess police is the place to do that, so.
And I'm going to discuss that position a little bit more.
I knew where the actual
Yeah.
position is going to, because it's a different department, so,
Right.
but I wanted to point out that, no,
We're
we're not.
shifting.
We're shifting, we're not actually, but we are getting another, basically effectively in terms of hours, another officer on the street. I just wanted to point that out during the police.
Okay, any more comments or questions under police? We'll move into municipal court then, Kathy?
All right, this budget's pretty simple. A small increase due to some fees, which you'll see on your comparison sheets. Overall increase of 2.5% or $111. So this budget's very, very streamlined. Any questions?
You know, this used to be my favorite department to pick at until,
Jackie's-
until Jackie corrected it all.
She's done a wonderful job.
Okay.
And she's having her baby tonight, so.
Is
Oh,
she?
all
She
Right.
is.
Congratulations.
So she's not on call?
I'm sure she'll take your
I'm sure she's got the YouTube up on the
Right,
monitor.
right.
I should take my call.
If you call during this meeting, I guarantee she'll take it.
You're probably right. Next is community development, and you'll see a pretty good decrease there, a little over 13%. Adjustments for the inspector, fire inspections, fuel, certification pay. This is the department where the civilian code enforcement officer would be placed. The budget for that position, including all benefits, salary, every aspect of that employee would be $59,160. So that includes travel and training, anything related to that position, so vehicle usage, maintenance, et cetera. So the plan for that position is that person would be 100% devoted to code enforcement, whereas in the police department, that's part of their time. So their attention is spread over a lot of different things. So we see this as a huge benefit for the city. The code enforcement person would take a city vehicle and just, patrol the city all day. They would need to come up to speed on our ordinances and so forth. There is a certification that we're looking for with this position, so there would be, a level of expertise already, familiarity with how this job is conducted. But it would not only free up police time, but, even more so, you'd have someone completely devoted to that role. So we see that as a huge benefit on both sides. And you should have gotten, a couple weeks ago, a memo that summarizes the rationale behind that position.
Can you highlight the changes that took place in the plan review on page 46? It's so much lower than it's been the past number of years, so how did you achieve that?
I can take that if you want.
Okay.
So the large number you see for last year's budget is actually the budget amendments that we had to do to reflect the pass-through costs from using the county for fire inspection. That's why there's a large difference, because we do it on a month-to-month basis until we fill that vacancy.
Okay, so we're expecting that we're going to spend the 35,000.
That's what we budget, and then depending on how long that vacancy lasts, there'll be budget amendments to reflect the pass-through fee.
Because the previous years, we had budgeted a whole lot more.
Those are the budget amendments from this past year.
The actuals or the budgeted?
It's the actual. So I did the budget amendments because that's what your true budget is at that point then.
Okay, so we'll be expecting to see a drop in this, though.
As if we fill the vacancy, yes.
And Jackie does have a strong candidate for that position, so we're hopeful.
Who does that code enforcement person report to?
Yeah.
Be Jackie.
So what if we put that in the police budget and have that person report to chief? And my thought process on that is I don't want the police department to all of a sudden completely remove themselves from this process. But while I agree that it would be nice to let the patrol officers patrol and not have to go be the bad guy when it comes to code enforcement, if they see a glaring problem, then obviously it's sort of everybody's job to control it, right? I mean, how many times do y'all probably get text messages from us, or we know we have some residents that like to help inform us too when there are code violations. But I think my point is that's sort of everybody's job to a degree, and I think this person might be better served reporting to the department that has always handled that and had the ability to enforce it, as opposed to completely ripping it out from underneath the police department.
Well, police would not be 100% removed from it if a violation escalates and a citation needs to be issued. Then we would involve a police officer.
I get that. I'm talking about more the boots on the ground.
We felt that it would be more appropriate under Jackie. She's already handling sign compliance and other issues, but we can certainly discuss it. I don't know if Troy may have an opinion on that, but this is where we fit. It would not be a commissioned officer, so we felt like it
Right.
would be better suited to community development.
I get they're not a commissioned officer, I know they're not a police officer, but I don't know, what's your
So,
bill?
so since you brought that up,
So-
I think that it's probably right now with the with the police department. I don't want to use the word rebuild because they're not rebuilding, but renewing their team and their leadership under Troy. To be honest, I think this position probably be better served with a fresh pair of eyes. Not that Troy's eyes are blinded to it by
Wow.
any means, but what I'm saying is that a fresh pair of eyes as far as we have a different person in a different department that is actually pursuing some specifics. I think that, you know, just as with the building department, and they go out and do inspections, if people don't comply, then, you know, it takes less than a minute for one of our officers to respond over and make sure that they comply. But I'm not saying that against obvious, I mean, there probably isn't a councilman that has a greater heart for our police department than I do. I'm not saying that against our police department, but what I am saying is that, you know, even in our positions, a fresh pair of eyes goes a long way. And so I think that with Jackie having that opportunity to serve our city, obviously she's done some amazing things with the municipal court and other areas that kind of are in the same line. I think that would be, in my opinion, I think that fresh pair of eyes would
Yeah,
go a long way.
I agree with that, and the other thing is it takes out the avenue of, when you report something, it's not like you're sicking the police on your neighbor, okay? There's a civil way to do this versus escalating to the police. If you don't go into compliance, there's an escalation path. But I think just the idea that it's a little bit more kinder and civil in nature, more neighborly, than basically calling the police on someone.
We'll let Troy speak and then I'll
Well,
also
and
say
let
that.
me say something too. My experience is I spend a lot of time with Foran on very technical IDC issues and sign ordinance issues. Every policeman, I think, Troy will say, knows to pick up a bandit sign.
Right.
But the real code enforcement, there's a lot of IDC interpretations and a lot of sign ordinance interpretations, which I think fits Jackie's realm. But that's at least my experience with it.
Along with permits as well.
Thanks.
You got anything else to say, Troy? Or is
So permits and stuff would be along with it, and that is more Jackie's field of expertise. So along with that, and then as Councilman Fletcher was stating, we're trying to move into a different form of law enforcement. We're trying to get away from, we're trying to get to a more, the community-oriented type of policing doesn't involve a police officer knocking on your door telling you that you need to mow the.
I would agree with that. No, I think that's
So-
what this position is for.
Right, so, but being that if it was under us, we would still have to manage that, but if he has an issue, he could always contact us if he's having an issue, like anybody else would. But I think, you know, due to the fact that permits and everything like that falls under Jackie, I think that would be the better place for it.
I was going to add the same thing. If we're going to leave it in PD, then they still have the responsibility for it. So that's what we're trying to get away from. And I'll add that the other cities around us have civilian code enforcement, and I know the city of Montgomery is transitioning to it right now, so it does work.
Yeah, certainly the
I'm
Woodlands
I'm a big
does.
fan of the civilian, and again, for the reason of knocking on the door, if you see a guy in a, you know, in a button-down shirt with a Shenandoah logo, it's like, oh, okay, as opposed to,
Guy or gal.
why is there a guy with a gun at my door?
Yes.
Because my grass is too tall.
Because my grass
Yeah.
is too tall, like, really? So, and I also think civilian should be civilian. I'd like to see it underneath, and Jackie to me is the obvious department. We've got, Danny's there, permits are another good idea, so I see a roof getting torn off, quickly I can check. That's my job, right? I'm code enforcement, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing. Because we've asked police officers to kind of keep an eye on that, particularly for some of these things that happen to spring up on, Sunday morning, a roof's coming off. But code enforcement can see that and stop. They don't have a patrol route. They can stop, they can look it up, they can go knock on the door, say, hey, you need to get a permit for this kind of stuff so that we can make sure it's being done right. Follow up with Danny, whoever else needs to be followed up. It's all in that same group. That's my thought. And then again, if there's an issue, you call, you call whatever officer's on duty, and, you can escalate or you can write a citation. So.
And to your point, Mayor, I agree with you. I think that what you're defining is a culture that we need to embrace as a city and administration, that, we may have our specific jobs that we do, but at the end of the day, our job title really is WIT, whatever it takes.
Right.
So whether we're patrolling in a police vehicle, or we're in a street sweeper, or, we're putting up banners, we're all supposed to be vigilant and observe the things that are out of line in our city, and then make the appropriate calls to the department heads to be able to come back out. That's a culture, and that takes time, obviously, to create and develop. And I think that, with Kathy and the department heads that we have, they're moving in that direction.
If everybody's in the consensus to put it under Jackie, I'm fine with that. My biggest thing is level of accountability. And I know if it's under Troy, then there's a level of accountability, right? I know that there's somebody that's going to be watching to make sure that job gets done the way it's supposed to. Not to say Jackie won't. Jackie hasn't been. Jackie hasn't been doing it. That's the difference. The difference is Troy has been, and historically that's been a function of the police department. So while we no longer have to use up those man hours, those labor hours, we still get to have the experts hold the accountability. So, but I'm all for it. That's where everybody else wants to put it, as long as it works, right?
The goal of code enforcement is compliance, and
Right.
the majority of time, that's what we get. There's a period of time to comply and remove a violation. It's not intended to be punitive or intimidating.
Absolutely
So,
not. Yeah.
as I said, on the rare occasion that we need to involve a police officer, we'll be able to.
I think to that point, the improved communication lines between all these departments, particularly
Yeah.
administration and police, it's obvious that that's improved, and I think that, moving that type of a position over to more of an administrative type of position, I don't think it's gonna be any skin off of Troy, and and they can jump into the middle of it and nothing flat if they need to, so,
And the
it
good thing
seems like
is
it's the right place to put it, to me.
If they need to get involved, they already know how.
Right.
I think this position is going to be, a lot of it's going to be informative, right? A lot of it's going to be, whether it's a simple residential issue or a commercial issue. Let me talk to you about what's going on. Let's have a discussion about what's going on, and I think that's going to be very helpful, so we can do the informative steps before we have to move on to the punitive stuff. So keep that in mind as we look for that position. It's friendly face is easy communication style. It's very important.
Definitely.
Okay. So anybody else then under community development, or do y'all want to move on to technology?
So I do have one question
Okay.
to that. So under salary and wages, I just want to confirm that also includes a fire marshal, is that correct?
Correct. That was funded in this year.
So it includes a fire marshal, and it also includes a code enforcement officer as well?
That is not in the budget. That was for discussion to see if there was even interest among council. So we haven't added it to the overall budget yet.
And you said that amount was going to be 59 and some change?
Yes, sir, that includes everything related to that employee, uniforms, travel, training, salary, et cetera, benefits.
is that commensurate to like other areas? You said that's becoming, the trend is
Yes, sir.
that it's a civilian position, so.
That's correct.
And the hiring the fire marshal is going to be offset by fees, is that correct? I mean, right now, what we're doing is we're just doing a straight pass-through.
And actually, there'll probably be some savings
Okay.
or some additional, money. Any other questions?
Okay, I'm moving technology then.
We've got an increase of 9.3%. You can see on your comparison sheets, these are related to, actually the decreases you'll see in red. Some increases in the operating services, technology replacement, replacing some computers, laptops, et cetera. Our software contracts, hardware, software contracts. If you have specifics, Chris can fill you in on the details.
Chris, under the operating services, it's not a big change historically, but just for this last year, what changed from the previous year then? I know year before that we're at 44, this year at 47, so it's pretty stable, but what's different this year in the budget?
An operating services, I believe you're referring to, that's where our,
Alarm monitoring.
yes, it's just,
cable.
most of it's just increases in those services, the addition of data communications out to the water tower. That was probably the biggest
Oh,
chunk.
okay, all right.
Yeah, because that was an additional,
Oh, is that the $7,000 to business internet? Is that the water tower?
well, I'm sorry, what was that, Mike?
The 7850, is that the business internet, is that servicing the water tower?
Business internet is total. That's all of our business internet services, including that.
Okay.
But that was an increase of
I thought we got a
7850?
reduction.
Yeah.
Well, we did, we cut services here in half, but then we added communication costs from here to the water tower. That's
That's
that,
what we're asking.
yeah, that total number is for all the services, including the water tower.
That's a point-to-point, it's totally different.
Yeah, am I answering your question?
So that's 7850, I'm guessing there's some small increase by the service to the city, and then there's a point-to-point fee from here to the water tower?
Well, the overall, it was, I don't have the numbers in front of it, it was a several $1,000s increase by adding the water tower.
Okay. And then there was a savings from CVB. Of course,
There was a
that
savings in
comes
CVB,
out
so
of-
it should have been it almost canceled out. I don't have the chart in front of me, but if you go back and look at the numbers, I'll break it down. I don't know what that number increase was from last year,
I have-
just in business internet services
I have 7850.
from last year. And
You
it-
need
this,
to probably relook that.
and this year is,
No, that's the total.
That's the increase, of 7850.
okay, I'm sorry, to look at.
That's what we're curious, it's like $650 a month for internet at the water tower,
Yeah,
is what,
that's what I'm trying to figure out. I knew there was a one-time cost to hook us up.
Right, but you got a monthly fee on the,
Well, I'm sure there is.
not $650 a
That's not-
month. I wouldn't think.
In my spreadsheet. I'm sorry, let me pull up my spreadsheet because obviously I don't break it down completely. It's itemized out. That's a long spreadsheet. I can give that back to you if you want to talk about it now. I can pull that
No,
up.
that's fine, you can get it back, I mean, that could always come back up again, budget workshop.
Yeah, well, I'll pull that number. I'll get you
Yeah.
some specifics.
Mike
on
just
that.
saw the same thing I did, it seemed like, yeah, it's $654
I know we
a
talked
month.
last year about you getting a big discount, so.
Also, there was an increase because of Civic Plus for CVB, because they went with their own website. So that's probably a chunk of that. Actually, that should be the bulk of it. No?
It's actually a separate line item.
Yeah, you've itemized the increase.
I have to go back and look at that, make sure that this comparison is actually correct.
Okay,
Because I gave Lisa a breakdown spreadsheet, so I'll make sure there's not,
And I thought we had our
Transposition.
computers, our individual computers on a plan so that as we replace them, $11,000.
they are, so what all PCs are on a 5-year replacement. This year just happens to be,
18 of them.
yeah, we had a larger quantity, plus we had some mobile devices, laptops that came up this year. So that was a big chunk. So I've been here 3 years, so they were a little behind. So some of the older machines, have come up.
So one question on that, I know, can we look at what's actually being used? And whether or not, kind of like we do with vehicles, if they're still doing the job and they're still running, if they're running Windows 10 and everything's working and it's a typical office computer, does it actually need to, and I'm not arguing about the budget, I'm just talking about when it comes time to actually replace it, does it actually need to be replaced?
And I do that.
Okay.
I have a pretty intricate spreadsheet, and I review everything. PCs pretty much, almost 100% of the PCs get used pretty constantly.
Sure.
Obviously with the number of employees we have, but there's other devices that I'll push to 6-7 years depending on how they get used. So yes, I do take that into consideration. In fact, what I do is that each year, as I'm reviewing that, as the spreadsheet tells me what's coming up, and I'll just add a 1 and it increases that, I'll push it to the next year. But what I try to avoid doing is what's happening here is that then you end up 2 years from now, you get a massive, because stuff that's just too old to keep, we
Sure,
have
and
infrastructure,
yeah.
so try
I'm
to.
saying, just grabbing everything at 5 years and replacing
No,
it is.
I definitely don't do that. I do, PCs pretty much yes, but there's a lot of other devices that we don't. Servers, switches, things like that, they get 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, on
They're-
servers, we've got a equipment replacement program,
Yes.
so I'm not,
On a related matter, though, I wanted to thank you for deferring the virtualization because of our.
Well, that's a good point.
Because of our, financial position this
Sure.
year, so that was the responsible thing to do. But I know that it would address that, and you don't know how much I was looking forward to talking about that this year. But I know we'll be talking about it next year, and that will
Yes.
take care of some of Mike's
Yeah, and that's a good
concerns.
point, and not to draw that out, but yes, if we had an virtualization, then that eliminates the future replacement of PCs. That was the idea behind that. So in the long term, you come out ahead, because you're not doing this.
very, very long term, but yeah.
After 5 years, it pays itself back. Because we're in a 5-year replacement, so once you get there, that's the advantage of that. And then obviously, mobile devices, they get used quite a bit, surfaces. So,
Mobile devices get beat on and you're hauling laptops around, I don't have an issue, but $11,000 seems like a lot for just replacing desktop boxes that are used.
It is. We have a lot
in
of
an office
Windows.
environment. I mean, we're not doing
Yes, sir.
CAD CAM stuff here. We don't need high-end computers, so.
our average computer is less than $800, and we pretty much, it's a standard. There's nothing,
Right.
no frills. It's pretty
Okay.
set.
Well, I appreciate you taking a look at those and making sure that we're only replacing the ones that absolutely have to be
Sure.
replaced, so.
If you'd like to see those spreadsheets I use, I'm happy to forward them to you. You can take a closer look at them.
All right.
And Chris, on that same thought, on the EOC, we're spending $2,000 for a projector? You've got budgeted
yes.
$2,000 for a replacement. Is that really necessary? Wouldn't a TV work that?
In
for
there,
that?
in that room, they have 2 TVs, but when in an EOC environment, when you have multiple streams going on, different things that they do as far as hurricane, different things happen at EOC, the larger the screen, the better. And that projector's pretty old, it's in there.
I just think it would be,
But for a permanent, $2,000 for a room that may or may not be used.
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and that's the thing, there's a lot of things we do that the rarely
We've used it
that
every
it
year
gets
since
used.
I've been here.
We do training in there. That's
Maybe
the other
it's
side.
me.
We do training in there, so that's a plus.
But there could be, a large 85-inch TV may be a better bang for the buck. I mean,
We could certainly do that.
I'm just saying.
Well, that's where
There's some options
Sure.
here, other than throwing another.
I found when you get to that size, the projector is the more economical choice.
Yeah, well, take a look, I'm just
Sure.
saying. So, but yeah, if what we have in there, is it dead, does it work? Is it explode?
It works for about 10 minutes and it shuts itself off, so.
Okay.
Is it the lamp? I mean, or is it the?
It's an older projector, it's well beyond replacement time.
Okay, anybody got anything? Any other questions under technology?
Don't forget about my virtualization next year.
I'm glad to see we're getting some security cameras up at the parks. so.
Virtually possible.
So this says toddler park and pool.
One question on that. So we also presented that to MDD as well. Is that contingent upon MDD, or we want?
That is not on their list as a priority right now, so we may
Okay.
talk about that for the general fund in budget
Okay.
workshop.
Gotcha.
I mean, if it's MDD eligible, let's ask them.
Well, let's ask them, yeah.
Yeah, all they can say is no, right?
Yeah, that's
The
right.
answer is no if we don't ask.
I think the comment, the comment tonight in the MDD meeting was that if we get the reimbursement of the 250, then priority 2 would be taken.
Yeah, there's some other areas to, yeah.
Priority two separate.
So that's already been discussed, but again, that doesn't put it in this year's budget
Yeah.
because there's too many ifs and buts and you can't make decisions on that.
Yeah, I think on this, I don't know what the breakdown is, I could see the toddler park, because it's kind of unmanned, the pool is locked or supervised. So I don't know what the.
Well, those
Steve
were
maybe
easy,
talked
'cause they
about
were-
But the pool is super easy, right? 3 cameras, they're on buildings, they're already powered.
Right now, when we looked at it, talking to them, we could certainly do more, but the toddler park and the pool were very easy. They were a one camera setup.
Oh, really, 1 camera?
Right now, I mean, so that's low hanging fruit, that's easy. The park was the larger
That's
one.
the pain.
And then, of course, next behind that is wastewater treatment plant, which is not even presented right now. So,
Yeah.
So the pool has internet at the pool. I'm
we have
assuming.
fiber there, yes.
Yeah, so I'm assuming we would use that for the security cameras.
Yeah,
We would, what they recommend is that at the pool and at the park, there's in a box, there's a small recorder that the camera streams into. And then so if something happens to that connection, you don't lose that data. So it records the data locally and then it ties into our system here. So if I go pull the video up through our system, it just pulls it down.
So at the toddler park, we have fiber?
We have,
It's
at the
fiber
toddler
there.
park, yes, we will have fiber at the toddler park. There's a
Okay.
box there.
we haven't installed the box yet for the.
No, there's,
that's
So,
what-
so it's part of this cost to install that box? Is that where, that's where I was going with the
yes,
question.
yes, it's very minimal equipment, a small box, put a piece of equipment in a box, put a pole up, put a camera up, it's very simple.
Okay, and do we have that capability at the big park? 'Cause I don't think we have, because we never had that wired,
That's the
right?
problem with the.
Yeah.
No, because we have to cover quite a bit of ground at the park.
That's
So we
all.
talked about doing it wirelessly, we could do it wirelessly, but over the long term, putting hard wire is best. And it's not going to vary the installation cost too much because you still have to buy all the wireless equipment. So you either spend the money on the wireless equipment or you spend the money on trenching and putting cable in the ground. And so we looked at it both ways. There's certainly some things we could change there. I mean, we went with our best assessment as far as coverage, security. We met with the security consultants, went out there and reviewed it. They sent several different suggestions. We made some changes, and we think we've got the best setup for police, for security. We can see people coming in. We can identify license plates. People pull up in the parking lot. High-def cameras. We can cover the basketball courts. We can cover the tennis courts. Cover the pavilion. Cover the restrooms where the vandalism is happening. I think we've got 7 cameras on that, I believe.
That's the main part, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're thinking we can cover both the toddler park, all installation costs? What do you think the annual maintenance on this is gonna be?
It should be very minimal. The only annual, the really maintenance is what we have, we pay for licensing. And just in all transparency, in my operational budget, I have the toddler park and the pool in there.
Okay.
I'm not presenting it as a project, it was minimal. So the only thing we're really looking for funding for is the park.
Gotcha. That's why this is here, not the capital project.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? The next department is CVB. And this budget has decreased the most, almost 30%, and that's mostly due to moving from the visitor center. So you'll see all those costs, and also not having Stag Bowl. That's a big reduction too.
So I have to say this is the only department that kind of worries me that we took such a huge decrease. Because it tells me we're not, what are we replacing it with? I get the lease, obviously, that should have been done long ago, but This is the one department that I don't understand why we didn't increase and have something else coming besides.
Yeah, more advertising or more
Something.
something. I mean,
Well, 10 grand a month
think
is
that's
hard to
what our-
replace with a lot of advertising.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, $250,000 is.
For the SAG
But I
bowl.
think that's what our
Not-
study's supposed to tell us, right?
not
So I don't know that we have the
running
answer to that
stuff.
question until.
Pardon?
I think that's what our study's supposed to tell us, and that's maybe why we don't have the answer to that question yet.
Right, and I can elaborate on that. COVID has affected a lot of things, as you all know, including that study. We are now talking with that consultant again about bringing that back to council at a significantly reduced rate and new approach, which would include a post-COVID recovery aspect. So John has added some more to the advertising budget, including a contingency item of 15% of the budget, and that is for the unknowns, that the opportunities that come up during the year that we don't know about or weren't planned. And I'll give you an example. He took advantage of some discounted ad space in the past budget year. We got a great deal, so he was able to take advantage of that. It's for those unknown, unplanned things. Another thing that he has done throughout COVID is some of the programs that we had budgeted that are the higher dollar programs, he has had them pull back on some of that, because why spend a lot to promote a hotel when there's no travel? So he paused some of those programs or pulled back on the spending for a little bit, and then we'll re-up it again as things loosen up. But if travel's restricted, us promoting the hotels is not going to change that. So he's managed these programs very well, and we're planning for the same spend in the next budget year with the anticipation that things will roll back to closer to normal.
So we're waiting on the study to, I'll just stay there.
Can the CVB pay for the ad buy that currently MDD pays for at Wood Forest Stadium? If they're still calling it Wood Forest
Yeah,
Stadium?
actually, I referred that to that as advertising. That's the scoreboard sponsorship.
Yes, yeah.
We can certainly look at that as a CVB. It's not really a visitor draw, so I don't know if we could justify it as a CVB. I mean, people don't come.
We'll discuss it later.
We can discuss it.
so why did we remove the contribution for vehicle and servers? If I understand we pulled the vehicle off, but CVB employees are eligible to use our pool cars, correct?
That's right.
So CVB should pay some ongoing percentage of the pool cars. I mean, come up with a number, but they should be contributing to that. If one of our CVB employees are going to be using our pool cars, we should be getting some compensation from CVB for
We
that.
can look at a percentage.
Just some percentage, whatever it is. And then the same thing with the servers. Did we reduce their contribution? What was the story there?
I'll let Chris elaborate on that.
Because the big reduction of $8,000 for vehicles and servers,
So, Chris, we were trying to figure out what's going to be a better way to budget for servers. They were putting in a lot of money, and that's just not how Chris was going to spend on servers. So, and since they're not over at CVB anymore, I just took them out for this year. There's still money there, just so that we can reevaluate what we're going to do with their equipment replacement. Get a better number. I didn't want to just throw a number there and.
I got you. So before budget workshop, we'll have some contribution.
we
They'll
can- yeah,
have
we
to
can
make-
revisit
And again,
that.
it's some percentage of, I mean, some percentage of their stuff, and again, I didn't see any desktops on here. I mean, it's all falling under technology now.
Right.
But if the city and general fund is paying for their desktops, that needs to be reimbursed. And we could do that either at the time of purchase, or we could simply, and my preference would be to have an ongoing.
They do a transfer he gives me the CVB and the water sewer technology expenses, and then do a transfer record. And you'll see that transfer for technology costs, I believe it's called underneath, transfer to general fund.
And you'll see a purchase of 2 laptops that are coming
Which I'll
from
double
CVB
check to
too,
make sure that all their equipment's under there too.
Okay, I see 2 laptops, okay. It wasn't over there.
And
Yeah,
Council, just to be clear, just to answer your question, we did not cut the communication budget for CVB, in the anticipation that they would, in fact, relocate. So there's $6,000 is still in operating services, which we can cut. But that money's, I kept that budgeted in anticipation that they would move to another facility, possibly. And if that, we don't feel it's going to happen, then we can cut that out. So that was $6,000 of that.
Of that 78.
Of that 7850.
Oh, that's that 78, that's going back to that number that you.
Yeah.
Yes, so that was, so we increased that cost because of the service of the water tower, and we kept the cost of the CVB, which we can cut. If we think that they're going to relocate, then obviously that money's budgeted for fiber service through our provider down to wherever they're going to be. But that money will not be spent, so it's just there if we don't use it.
Are we considering relocating the CVB?
Before the COVID, we had discussed the possibility of moving them over to the Moon Center because Sam Moon wanted a police storefront just for a presence, for security. And so at the time, we thought, well, why don't we just get a little more square footage and put CVB over there so they'll be kind of right in the hub of activity. And, we went back and forth with Moon on some, how much space, the rates and so forth, and then everything kind of ground to a halt, and we haven't gone any further with that discussion. Our goal was to bring that to council at the appropriate time for discussion, and we just didn't get any further at this point. And of course, that was largely dependent on where council saw CVB going, in the future, and of course the cost. Would it be beneficial?
So $6,000 currently is in Chris's budget to budget for a move.
It's to cover communication costs.
Okay, that's just the communication.
Yes.
I think you can take that out, and if we decide to make a move, we'll do a budget amendment for it. I don't see budgeting for a move. It may or may not happen.
I really liked getting $140,000 back for not paying a lease payment.
Oh, I love that.
I mean,
Yeah. The discussion of a move is way down on the list at this point. I mean, we're doing
Right,
fine
and that's
with
what I'm
them
thinking.
here.
I mean, this time next year, we may actually be talking about a move, at which point we can authorize $6,000. I mean, and if the council who's sitting up here decides that's something they want to do. But I don't think we need to budget for a possibility. I think we can take that out.
I agree with that statement right there. Yeah.
But my personal opinion, and I know I've made this clear to staff, I think that this is where they need to be in the first place. I mean, everything's centrally located.
Right.
You look up Shenandoah, CVB's right here, and
Walk in the
staff's
door,
here, right
walk in
the
the other
building.
door, talk
Yeah.
to them.
Yep, so I think that's my personal opinion. I just don't see how having a lease on another piece of property benefits us, so.
And we have the space. We have excess space here. And they are going to be paying the city, they're going to be reimbursing the city for that space, so.
Well, I think that we need to have a specific plan for CVB, and if the study's going to produce that, then, great, let's get to that point and then we can talk about it. But right now, I don't, why would we budget for, it's like having the space across the street. What's the
Yeah.
purpose?
I think as a broader statement, I don't want to add in what-if monies into the budget.
Exactly.
This should be a baseline.
This is our plan. It may change, but this is our plan.
Right.
And if we don't
Agreed.
have a plan, then we don't put money there.
I'm a little curious about removing our membership to the Texas Hotel Lodging Association.
Unfortunately, I'm not.
It actually
100% sure why.
increased.
What's that?
THLA, it actually
It just
increased.
shows removed Texas Hotel Lodging Association, $4,782.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the Hotel Lodging Association. My
I
bad.
think.
And I'm not a big fan of spending that money, but at the same time, I'm also not a big fan of making enemies with them.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't recall that being taken out.
That's what they gave me.
Okay, we'll look at that.
I just
Okay.
blurred all the increase.
It's only because I've had to deal with Scott on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
Well, they're helpful.
Sometimes.
Well, you need to be able to call them.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Okay.
And Mike, to your point, in the transfer to the general fund,
Yeah,
from CVB, there's 15,250 for technology.
I thought there, oh,
It's a line item
So
out
that
of
will-
233,000, so.
That will reduce by 6,000 as well. Because yeah.
okay.
So the technology expense will reduce, and then the transfer record will also reduce by that amount.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then I just, make sure it's covering support costs and server costs and communication costs and,
We'll look at the replacement cost.
There-
yeah.
Well, it's
They're-
15,250.
their appropriate portion of our internet services, their appropriate service, just make sure that that's actually covering that.
So the other question I had was the lease factor that we're using for CVB here at City Hall. How did we determine the rent factor? Was that based on square footage? Is that based on?
So,
Go ahead.
so many years ago, when they did water sewers rent, they based it on square footage, I believe. I couldn't find the actual calculation, but that was what was communicated with me. When they came over mid-year, I kind of consulted with Joseph and Kathy and said, how do you want to approach this? And they said, let's just match water sewers because it's about the same square footage in that huge lobby center, Joseph's hallway, and then the office space in the, over at the Public Works building. So that's kind of how we just based it. But we can revisit it. I have no problem doing that.
Well, yeah, because I candidly, I want to charge CVB as much as we can, if we're going to be honest.
Okay,
And
that's
so
fine.
I just want
was
to know.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I want to
It's not close to
figure.
market rate.
No, yeah, so how did we determine the per square footage dollar amount is a big factor, did we?
Yeah, what was our square footage across the street?
Did we go off of appraised value, and then based on appraised value, what is
Yeah.
that, what would be the market rate on a lease in, a comparable building in this area? What square footage are we actually determining as CVB? Because if we have unused square footage adjacent or congruent to that, I would like to absorb some of that unused square footage and deem that as CVB as well. I think they should pay for a portion of the front entry, because obviously anybody that comes to see, anybody in the CVB is going to come through the entrance.
We
So
probably also need to revisit that because if Joseph's department moves over to the Public Works building, they will take up Danny's office because Danny will move. A lot of that will be absorbed, that those storage closets will become theirs as well. So
I
we
just
need to
think as
revisit
much-
probably
as-
all that.
As much of those CVB dollars as we can legally and justifiably warrant, we should charge those.
I mean, right
Yeah.
now, it's glass door to glass door, it's the two offices, it's all that lobby space. And again, if someone walks in the door, this is where I actually like it where it is.
Me too.
They walk in the main door, they go through that next door, you're in CVB.
There's no bathroom in the CVB,
No bathroom.
so they got to pay to go use the bathroom somewhere, so they should be charged a portion of that. I'm just, listen.
There's the bathroom in the lobby, yeah. In the
So,
lobby right
yeah,
there.
So they should pay a percentage of that square foot. They use
Yeah,
it.
and we just put that in there because it was mid-year move and just trying to figure something else
Sure.
real quick, but we can also, we'll revisit that.
I know
I'll get with
I know
Kathy.
they were looking at it because I had asked that question earlier to them.
Okay.
And then, sorry, but then other contributions, I am assuming relates to utilities and other expenses, that 12,827.
Electricity,
Yeah, electricity,
water.
air conditioning, water.
Yeah.
I would assume that's what that relates to. So as that square footage, if it increases, then those other contributions should equally increase based on
On the health
percentage.
department, I'm sorry.
John just called my attention to something under advertising. That's where the THLA group membership and annual, advertising and annual membership is shown
So
for
he just
55.
moved it then, okay.
Yeah, just moved.
Did he? Because it doesn't show it on there.
Yeah.
It's about third from the bottom under advertising in your budget book, page 56.
Oh, okay, not on this.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
That was there last year too. That's why I didn't include it on the comparison sheets.
Bill, would it be a stretch to say that anybody working the front desk, a percentage of their salary could also then be charged to CVB based on, I'm just, if they're going to be greeting visitors as they come in the door?
I think that may be fair. That is more of an accounting question. And thank goodness, by coincidence, we have our auditor sitting in the audience, so I'm sure he's listening and can advise Lisa appropriately
Okay, good.
on what we
I
can
don't want to do anything that's wrong, but I want to absolutely account for every single dollar that CVB's taking advantage of.
I think that's fair.
And you just treat them like we would treat anyone else who would,
Yeah, anybody.
any other entity
Space.
that would,
That's right.
yeah. I mean, it's renting I-45 frontage road property.
Right.
With easy access and incredible visibility.
Anybody got anything else under CVB? I guess we could move into then C, which is capital projects and purchases.
Yes, council, you'll have this sheet at your desk, a hard copy of this, and it repeats some of the projects that we're discussing in MDD, along with some additional capital purchases and projects that are being proposed. And of course, some of these will come to budget workshop. MDD is looking at 70% of some of these projects toward the top. As you get toward the bottom, you'll see the projects that are not eligible for MDD funding. Public Works building, equipment, software, information technology, et cetera.
Now, my understanding is, and MDD people MDD was looking at spending 100% on these first projects?
It was 70% on the water,
The
except for
priority
the
ones.
preliminary design for the improvements.
For I'm talking about the 5 water and sewer projects?
Mhm. So it'd be 70% on the MCC, the ACP, and then the full for the improvement preliminary engineering.
I think President Beavers, when he was talking about 100%, he was talking about the I-45 Research Forest
Yes.
intersection improvements.
That's right.
Okay, I was under the impression we were talking about that, and you guys,
No, the projects that we're looking at, we're gonna total about,
2,400,000.
yeah, the total cost, well, the total cost, it's 70% of the MDD eligible projects. It wasn't 100%.
okay,
The tier, or the priority 1 projects totaled 1.9 million, and MDD was looking at 1.4.
okay. Because, I mean, we talk about the MDD eligible amount, but really, that's just a general
It's kind of a
agreement.
guided
MDD
one.
really could spend.
They could spend.
They could spend more.
Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, I just wanted to get, good, I got some
They
clarification.
could pay for the whole project if they wanted to.
Right, that's when I
Yeah.
heard 100%, I thought, okay,
Yeah.
then,
The 100% was strictly related to the I-45 research forest.
okay.
And the engineering fees for the
Yeah, the
wastewater
250.
treatment.
250.
Reimbursement.
Yeah, that's not on capital.
That's not on here.
I don't know if our intent was to go through each and every one of the projects, capital projects tonight.
No, that is not
No.
our intent.
But I did want to say that I was really happy to see the two technology ones, the Questica budgeting, because, and as well as the one for replacing the Caliber RMS system, because what you guys are doing with the systems that we have today, it's like you're working with bearskins and knives. So you're really doing a good job, and you really need a better tool to be more productive.
I was excited to see the skid loader. See, it just shows you where our, it showed the difference.
I thought I saw something about some software for a skid loader, and that would have probably, done it for me too.
But so the water plant 2 and the water distribution system, we'd be looking to pay for the balance of that out of our water sewer enterprise fund? Our huge excess that we have over there?
That's correct.
All right, do you have this in no, it's text. What would be, because one thing MDD did, if you'll remember, is going to reimburse 70% of the water tower, which added up to like $480,000. What was it?
Yeah, 480,000.
480,000. Will that cover these water line replacements, or, I don't have an Excel pull, but the
Pretty
difference
close.
here.
The difference?
It's been about 20,000.
Let's see,
give
one
or
point,
take.
yeah, there it is, 1.9 and 1.4. So, yeah,
Personally, I didn't have any interest in getting reimbursed because water and sewer are already paid, so I'd like that fund to stand on its own, and I think we're gonna see that when we do our
Well,
water and
yeah,
rate study, that it's
that's-
gonna take care of itself.
that's the goal.
Yeah.
At least that's my goal. So that will pretty much, that reimbursement will pretty much let water and sewer then, so that was my point, Ron, is that water and sewer with that 70% reimbursement, water and sewer can then pay for the 30% of these 5 projects. Does that make sense? So we could have the water, the $480,000 that comes back from MDD for their 70% of the water tower, we can then budget to cover these 5 projects so that water and sewer can actually pay for their share of the projects. Because right now, I think our bank balance is 0 or possibly even
It's close.
negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close to 0. So when that $480,000 gets transferred, then that money can be used right there to allocate. So we don't have to pull general fund money to prop up water and sewer. That's where I was heading with all that question.
Also, you'll notice in the proposed budget that there is a higher surplus for water sewer this year. That's primarily because we had 2 bond payments fall off. So it went from about 528,000 to about 203, I believe. So you do have a little bit more flexibility there as well. And that's with no increase to revenue.
Right.
That's before any decision on the rate study as well.
So my thing is, if MDD is willing to pay for this money, I think we go ahead and take it. And
Yes.
literally,
I
at the
agree
end of the
with
day, MDD will have paid for 100% of these
Everything,
projects
yeah.
by doing the reimbursement.
Yeah, I don't think that props up water and sewer on its own, because we're still paying for the elevated storage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The $480,000 of elevated storage is still being paid for outside of water and sewer fund.
I agree.
But that's,
We're gonna get there.
But we're gonna get there,
We're gonna
yeah.
get there.
We're just trying to find a zero.
right.
We
Yeah,
gotta,
trying to find zero
if we can
right.
start from 0, then,
Let's get to the water rate study.
Well, in our
Well, I
capital,
mean, if we're done with the capital projects, we can. Unless somebody else has got something.
well, I just want to say this, Rich, that the water line replacement that's in our capital projects on our budget is only David Memorial at David Vetter. The rest of these, the other 3, have been escalated from future up to this. So,
But we're
but
gonna
then
see-
again, if we do just the rate study on the wastewater treatment plant, which we had at $900,000, it's only $250,000. So it's a wash there.
yeah. Well, we should get some cost savings by bidding these out as a group.
Right.
Okay, well, if nobody's got anything else, let's move on to the rate study.
Yep.
We'll move on to item 10 then, which is discussion regarding the water sewer rate study. This is a discussion only item.
Good evening again. Yes, the CIP budgets that you were looking at, there were changes made for MDD consideration. So some of the budgets didn't line up, like the timing on the ACP projects. Joseph had them staggered in 2 different budget years.
Well, right.
So anyway, that's the explanation there. So first, I'd like to introduce Brenton Stamper, sitting right over there. He's the project engineer that helped produce the utility rate study. Jennifer Steen was the project manager, and she's not here tonight. And I'm just the messenger, so. Just a few reminders. We last looked at this in May. We've worked since that time with your staff to fine tune this. We took some of the CIP projects that we had as contingency projects. We took those out to reduce the impact. The last rate increase that you had was in 2010. And we did look at an inflation factor over the last 10 years to kind of see if the rates would have been
adjusted to include a 3% inflation factor, where would we be today? And it turns out we'd be about double for the average user residential than what we're proposing. So just a little bit of side information there. Excuse me. We're proposing this to be a 5-year plan. It matches up with the 5-year CIP. And we're also proposing in this plan a 6-month reserve to be built up over that 5 years, and that's kind of an industry standard. You don't have that right now. So if you'll look on the screen, just this first bar graph, you looked at this last, or in May. The purpose of this is to just kind of highlight a comparison with some of your neighbors in terms of water rates. This is existing Shenandoah customer, 7,000 gallons a month. All of these are with the loan. This would be proposed. And then you can see Oak Ridge North, City of Conroe, Montgomery, and Rayford Road Mud. So even with a rate increase, you're well under everybody around you. Next. This is for commercial customers. Most of your commercial customers are tied in with a 2-inch meter, 100,000 gallons with the loan per month. And it's the same principle. They're right here now. They would be right here with an increase. Everybody else is higher, except for some reason Rayford Road Mud is lower. But it gives you an idea of how you compare. The next slide here are the pie graphs that you looked at in May. What we're trying to show here is that your existing revenue, total revenue, and how that's divided up. 21% of the revenue comes from your residential customers. This is monthly. And then the next pie graph will show the same thing. We kept that the same, still 21% if you approve a rate increase sometime in the future. The last couple of slides here, this is a minimum user. Basically, we increase the $9 per month base fee.
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
Can you go back to those 2 pie charts again?
Sure.
So average monthly water and sewer and proposed. So is that different from the one that, because I thought in the packet it was a higher number than that.
With loan or without?
Yeah, there was 2.
Well, these are with the loan. Or which one are you looking at in your packet? They're
32, 120, they're same.
Here it is, average monthly water and sewer revenue from proposed rates showed 55.8 from residential and 247 from commercial.
Correct. That is changed.
No, that's without the loan.
Yeah.
So the rates have to be higher if you don't
Okay, that's
close
okay.
on the loan.
And this
So-
is with the loan. Okay.
Yes, and so the study has 2 options, with the loan and without the loan. You're looking at the one without the loan.
If it's split out on 2 pages, it's without the loan.
Okay, I see where you're going. Okay, I see where you are now. Sorry.
Yeah. If you go to page 9, it's these, which are with the loan.
Gotcha. Okay.
So moving on. This is a minimum customer, 3,000 gallons per month. This is the minimum water bill that anybody would get. We're proposing to increase the base rate from $9 per month to $9.50, and also the sewer base rate, same amount, $1 a month proposed increase. Next. And then what we did here is we went to TML, Texas Municipal League. They do annual surveys of water usage, residential customers. And so the average statewide per month is 5586 gallons per month. That's really close to your average, according to Joseph. And so what we did is, well, what's the average bill going to be for a customer, a residential customer in the city? Right now, they're at 3406. With the loan, it'll be an increase of $4 per month. Without the loan, it'll be an increase of $7 per month. I think that's the last slide. Oh, we had one more.
Those are the 7,000.
That's, well, that's just a 7,000 gallon per month user. That's not much
It's the
different.
same
So,
tier as that.
hmm?
I don't know.
No, you're good. We didn't need to look at that. So, again, the purpose of the study is to look at your O&M cost and your CIP cost and determine what revenue do you need to produce to fully fund those costs with no outside resources, no MDD contribution or any other, transfer from general fund or whatever. And so, obviously, we're recommending, if you decide to change the rates, and you've already authorized us to proceed with the loan application, that you move forward with the loan, close the loan. That's the least amount of impact that the customers would have. If MDD moves forward with their contributions that were discussed tonight, you have all kinds of options here. You could still adopt this in October. You could put it off a year because of the MDD contributions. The intent is to have a 5-year plan, building a reserve and having a self-sustaining fund. You can't do that if you don't have outside resources. And so that's a quick summary of where we are. Do you have any questions so far? Anything?
You had mentioned earlier your confidence factor in us getting the loan approved. I know there's ample dollars available, so there's a high probability that we're getting this loan.
Right. Based on my discussions with the Texas Water Development Board, the project is a qualifying project, and they have the funding. So I think once we get through the public hearing processes, once we get the application in, we'll get a positive response and hopefully close on the loan before the end of this calendar year. Hopefully close to 0%.
I really appreciate all the work you've done on this, and I think it would be in the interest of council to move forward with getting water and sewer to stand on its own feet and quit being backstopped by either the city and or MDD. We're not going to get there immediately. It's going to take us some time because we've spent many, many years with this sort of extra help. But I appreciate I'd like to ask our auditor a question. Sure. My understanding is that these enterprise funds should be self-sustaining.
Right, best practice is that all enterprise...
Step up to the mic, please. There you go.
Best practice is that all enterprise funds should be self-sustaining. So while it's okay for there to be some kind of outside source of contribution from time to time, ultimately the goal should be for the fund to be self-sustaining, which currently it appears as it is when you incorporate any contribution from MDD.
Can you repeat that again? I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Yeah, currently it appears as though the fund is self-sustaining whenever you incorporate the MDD funds that are contributed.
So as long as MDD is propping it up, it's self-sustaining, but it's not self-sustaining based on its billing.
It's not, from a true sense, it's not self-sustaining.
Right.
But that should, and it happens. There's plenty of cities that are struggling to get their enterprise funds to be self-sustaining. Fortunate enough for Shenandoah, you guys are in a position to where you can easily make that happen. Just looking over the rate study, and it looks like I've been able to examine all the detail that have gone into it as well, and look at the historical data they've put into it, and it stands up, and I think it looks good.
Okay.
But ultimately, the only way that we would be able to do that is to tax our residents more.
Ultimately, that's y'all's decision as far as how you guys would want to approach whether you do a rate increase or not. Just as from a financial standpoint, to be self-sustaining, that would be how you accomplish it.
Because I think I referred to earlier about things that we had deferred. If we would have raised water rates over the last decade 50 cents a year, we'd be exactly what we're proposing to do right now with the water loan. And maybe we wouldn't even need the water loan if we had been building that up all along. So we just don't want to be in that position again. Let's build that fund up so that it does indeed stand on its own feet.
Well, if we raised it, so ran the math, we actually raised it 3% a year. That $38.95 which we're proposing to go up to 43.95. Is that right? No.
That's for a 7,000 gallon user.
Right, so that's a 7,000 gallon user. But if we'd had just done 3% a year, roughly keeping up with inflation, we would now be at 52.35. And the fact is, we've used outside tax dollars to artificially keep this fund low. And so that's why we're in this position right now, is because we've been using other tax dollars to basically prop this up. And so.
So what other tax dollars are you referring to?
MDD tax dollars, general fund tax dollars.
So MDD tax dollars are a little bit different. Well, MDD tax dollars are a lot different than general fund dollars.
How's that?
Their taxes.
How's that?
Yeah,
Well,
it's a 0.5% sales tax.
no, I understand that, but it's used for specific items.
True.
Where a general fund, obviously can be used for anything. When you have the
No.
ability, to utilize an enterprise fund like MDD to offset services for our residents, why would we not do that? It's the same as free trash.
Because we have ample projects for MDD to spend MDD dollars on without having to do that.
If MDD is propping up water and sewer,
Then we're taking
then we're
funds from
taking,
other
we're taking
places.
funds from other projects. We can't
What,
build parks, we
what
can't
projects
build
are we
roads.
taking?
How
We
about
can't build roads,
redevelopment
we
of
can't build
I-45?
parks.
Hold on. We're kind of spinning off. We're getting into a high-speed wobble here. Let's calm down. Let's try to focus on the rate study if we can, since that's the agenda item that we're in. And I don't disagree with several of the comments, and I think it's all good discussion, but let's try to focus on the rate study. I'm going to throw out there, for the benefit of everybody's amusement, I'm sure, to get us back on track. And I can appreciate the fact that there are other charges in a water bill, but my water alone last month was $86.25. My total bill was $130.87. Okay, before you start throwing stuff at me, I realize that I have 3 boys to go along with me and my wife. But so I'm concerned that we're focused a lot on average numbers, and are we seeing the most reoccurring number? And what's the total impact? I mean, so I've stated for a long time, what's the true cost of water? And that was really where I was trying to, you knew I was going to ask that question.
Yes.
So as we look at this rate study, A, what is our true cost of water right now? And then B, what is the total impact on the residents of the city of Shenandoah? Not just this average water bill of $34, because I know for me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, well, I'm so far off of that it's hard for me to even use that as a unit of measurement. So instead, what is our total impact for the residents of the city of Shenandoah? If we raise this amount, what are we talking about? This is the additional, to Ted's point, we can call it whatever we want, but it's sort of a tax that we're taxing the city, if that makes sense.
No, because it's a
You
product.
can call it whatever I get
No.
it. You can call it whatever you want. It's an additional charge that we're charging the residents, plain and simple.
For a gallon of water out of the
And
ground to their house.
And I don't disagree with the fact that they should pay, that we should pay for a product. I'm not disputing that point.
So we looked at customers in different neighborhoods in Shenandoah. We have the information, but the best way to look at this is to just look at what the average users are going to be, because that covers most residential customers. We know in the summertime, most residential customers are going to be 10,000 gallons or less. And we know in the wintertime, they're going to be 5,000 gallons or so per month. Other customers that have a lot of landscaping or larger yards or other, water uses will have higher water bills. I mean, and as the tiers increase, the cost increases for both residential and commercial customers. Now, what's the true cost of water? I would say the true cost of water is your O&M cost, which includes debt service. Your capital projects cost, which we've included in here that the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund should pay for. And you can look at all of your plants, your distribution system for water. You depreciate those costs. So it is a cost.
Sure.
It's a depreciation. So that's the true cost of water for customers in the city of Shenandoah. I mean, you're having to pay for all those things. And, you know, as we talked, I think in May, your facilities are in really good shape. Your operators do a great job of maintenance. And so it's been a blessing that there's not been any huge costs. We know about the ACP pipes or water lines that we're going to replace, the other CIP projects we talked about. But so I would say that the true cost of water are those things that are in this study, and it is a cost, and those costs keep going up. And if you include the CIP projects that, if you want to be standalone, you can't afford it based on what you're charging now. We have some graphical representations. Kathy, can we pull these up? Okay, so this is this goes back to 2010. And so what Lisa and Joseph worked on here is a graphical representation of where you were between the baseline is 0, where you were from 2010, which was the last rate increase, and you can see the revenue increased considerably in 2011, plus that was the height of the drought year, and then up and down, and then when you hit 2017 and you funded Water Plant 4 out of your Water and Sewer Fund, you can see what happened. And then you funded the hydro pillar rehab work. And moving on past 2020, with no rate increase, no MDD contributions, you can see where the fund is headed.
So this chart is also taking into consideration if MDD never funded anything in the past,
yeah.
from the past 10 years, going back to 2010.
But that's why
Sorry.
we're actually in the positive till this year.
This graph shows what he's talking about with MDD, with no future MDD contribution and no rate increase. This is kind of where we're at going forward with the same project listing that we have on the 10-year plan.
So this is just a graphical representation of the history, and Lisa's right, that first graph did not include any past MDD contributions, even though there were some, but this is what it would have been.
What it would have been if Water Sewer had funded everything.
So do we have a graph that shows what future, what it would look like if MDD continued at the current level?
I guess that's sort of a crystal ball graph.
Yeah, we don't know what that is, so we don't have.
No, based on the assumption at its current level, we do know what that is. It's 70-30 split.
But we didn't know that until tonight, what they were going to do.
Well, no, we've known that. I mean, that's basically what MDD's agreed to pay and has for the last several years. Has been a 70-30 split.
I can make one.
70-30 for everything.
I can get that to you.
I mean, if we're going to show graphs, I mean, I'd like to see all the way across the board. I
Do you
apologize for
have
hitting with that tonight. I didn't
contributions that
realize we didn't
MDD
have that.
has made in the past?
Well, that next blue, the 1920, you should be able to, because that's, as of, well, I mean, it's not official, but as of tonight, you should be able to raise that up, because that's,
Let me say something that hasn't been talked about tonight, and that is that if MDD funds your water rate, if your fund is not breaking even or making money, I think your auditor will tell you that will be written up in the audit, and that will adversely affect the city's bond rating in the future, because it's obvious that the city's robbing Peter to pay Paul. In other words, everyone knows and can see in the audit that the city is funding a enterprise water that's losing money.
But we didn't just start that practice, and we haven't had that problem.
Well,
Well, we fixed it
wait,
initially about
your
10
problem
years ago.
started, your problem
Continuing to
started,
defer is only going to make that worse.
right.
So-
And that, I mean, we've got the auditor here, he can address that, but
I think that's a huge factor. Maybe we should get him to.
well, I mean, that's,
Before Lewis starts, when you take out bonds, you do have to go through a whole process, and they look at all your financials, they look at your revenue sources, and they evaluate you based on that. So in the situation, if we can't provide that it's self-sufficient, or we have enough revenue coming in without relying, we may not get approved for bonds that we might need. That's another factor in that as well.
And sorry, I was listening, but I don't know if I got the exact question being asked in that, so.
the question was, the effect of relying on MDD to make up the difference is in our audit, will that be commented on in our audit, and will that ultimately affect our ability to get bonds, or the rate,
Sure.
the rate of interest that we pay?
Sure. So, so the answer to that question is, it would definitely be brought up as a point of concern as part of the audit. It wouldn't impact the result of the audit from you would get.
You need the same grade, in other words.
Yeah, like from the audit perspective, the opinion would not change if the utility fund was operating at a deficit even. But it would certainly be brought up as a point of concern, so that way council would be aware of the situation, just in case for some reason you weren't already. As far as the bond rating, pretty much what they've said is is how it works. Whenever they look at operations of the fund and see how it's operating and see if it's self-sustaining, what kind of other sources it's receiving, that's how they'll determine it. So if you were going out for a bond for enterprise-related uses, then they would be looking at the operations of the enterprise fund, and so they would look at that, and that would affect your bond rating on that aspect of it. So I don't know the inner workings of how they evaluate the actual bond rating to arrive at that, but they certainly consider all those aspects as they're arriving at that. So I don't want to misspeak there and give you specifics on how they arrive at that.
But from your viewpoint, it doesn't change the grade of the audit if we use MDD funds to offset water and sewer, or water rates rather.
From an audit opinion, that wouldn't change, but it is something that we always specifically point out during every audit presentation for every city, is whether or not your enterprise fund is self-sustaining. And so, that would still be brought up as whether it was self-sustaining or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So going back to Councilman Fletcher's question, we can go back and generate graphs that include all the MDD contributions in the past. I don't know,
Ones they just talked about.
is that every year?
Well, but they weren't all water.
So there were several years, like the Calhoun well, some minor projects in the past, and then recently, since I think it was 17 or 18, the 70-30 split. So I can show that.
So we can generate that, and
So basically, according to this graph that's currently up there, we haven't been self-sustaining since 2016, but I haven't seen that in our audits yet.
No, this is as if MDD never contributed anything at all
Correct,
in the
which
10
means
years.
that
MDD's been
which
brought-
means,
MDD's
hold on
been
just a
brought
minute.
up.
Well, hold on a
So
minute.
it's okay.
Hold on. Which means that that water and sewer was not self-sustaining since 2016, if you look at this graph. But yet that has not been written in our audits since I've been a councilman.
It wouldn't be a write-up. It would be brought up as part.
But that's what you just came up and talked about.
It would be
so
part
I'm
of the
confused.
presentation as whether or not it's self-sustaining.
So
It
I've
would-
been here for 3 years and I haven't heard that once, unless I missed it.
I know specifically that this past year it was brought up, and I always mention how it's self-sustaining. I don't always break down, here's how much is coming from, which source. but it is brought up.
And you've mentioned it in our meetings.
So, and my point would be that, you know, we're trying to create this, you know, if we don't do this, then we're gonna have all this negative things happen. And I'd like to talk to the bond person to actually find out how that would affect our bond rating. And since we had a bond rating, I believe every year, why hasn't it impacted our bond rating at this point? So I want to be very careful what we present here overall to make sure that it's true, factual data across the board. I don't want to assume anything on this. Obviously, there's a ton of information here, but I don't want to jump so fast through the hoops that, you know, we're not taking into consideration some of the other aspects. So based upon what we're hearing, yeah, obviously the MDD has been propping up our water sewer fund because that's what the board has agreed to do. So I'm not sure how it impacts, you know, I don't, from what you're telling me, it doesn't seem to have a negative impact on our audit. I'd like to talk to our bond manager and find out how our bond rating's working because I haven't seen it affect our bond rating yet. So I want to be careful what we're saying here.
Bond ratings are only reassessed when you take out further bonds.
So didn't we refi one here recently?
It was all ad valorem.
So we didn't have to go through a bond rating on that. So
I
the
don't
last
believe
bond
so.
rating we had was when?
For all of them, it would have been 2000, when Jennifer did it, 2011, 15 maybe?
So I thought we had one in 16 that showed something different, if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
she did one in 2015, a refunding.
But you could shoot him.
But
an
I'll call
email
John
and
Martin.
Call him up.
Yeah,
You can call him up.
let's
get
find
his
that out.
opinion. Yeah. It's not, it's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And listen, I don't disagree with the fact that I'm sure the study is definitely highlighting a lot of good factual information. I feel like this is almost to me, this is something bigger than what it needs. Somehow or another, I don't know if we would want to push this off far enough to put it on a ballot, or if we just want to do a town hall, but, you know, to me, this is a big enough jump, you know, that we need community involvement in a decision like this.
I think $5 a month, is that big of a jump?
I don't think it's just $5 a month. You know, I mean, listen, there's a couple of factors there. It's $5 a month for somebody who's using 5,500 gallons, and who has a $30 water bill. But I don't have a $30 water bill, and I'm sure I'm not the only person in the city. And it impacts not only our residential, but our commercial. And our low water rates is absolutely an attractant for people wanting, whether they be residents or businesses that want to move to the city. There may be some value in paying a little bit for that. There may be some value.
But Rich, you could see from the comparison, we had by far the lowest rate in
But yeah,
the
I mean,
area.
first
still
off,
will.
first off,
Even with the
Well,
increase.
Yeah, first off-
we're only looking at a couple of, I mean, I'm getting to see Oak Ridge, Conroe, and Montgomery. I mean, that's my sample size. So I would like to see, and I don't dispute that those are their rates. I'd kind of like to see a bigger sample size than that. I'd like to see a broader spectrum. I'm not sure where the Woodlands falls into that. Does the Woodlands fall into Conroe? Is that?
No, they have mud districts. They have 11 muds that, you know, have
So
customers.
you're not lumping all those into?
No.
Okay.
No.
and I appreciate the comparison to other cities, but, you know, why would we want to compare ourselves to another city?
Well, I think that as a business owner, you should know, when you're looking at, I could put my business here or here, those are factors
Right,
that
no,
they're
but
gonna
what
look
I'm
at.
saying is, why would we, as council, want to compare to another city being lower? I mean, I think we'd want to compare to make sure we're not the highest.
I want to make sure
but
we're more competitive.
If we're the most competitive, then I wouldn't look at that study and say, oh, well, we have room that we can increase.
No, absolutely not.
But that's kind of what I'm feeling on the left side and the right side over here, or both left side, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that, you know, we should make our decision based on comparison. We make our decision based on what's best for our residents. And I agree with you. I think that, having low water rates, and whether it's $5 a month now or, and that would be $5 a month for the next 5 years, and we would reassess in 5 years and see what, our CIP plan was at that point. Irregardless, I think a big selling point in Shenandoah is low water rates, free trash. There's products and services that we provide our residents, low taxes, a strong police department, strong revenue tax, sales taxes, which lowers our property taxes. There's so many benefits that we have as a city that as soon as we start picking this one out and picking this one out and saying, oh, we should increase our revenues here, increase our revenues there, we forget who we are. We have to continue to set that tone for our residents that, you know what, that's why I ran 3 years ago, was to change the thought process, and we worked hard to change the thought process on the MDD. That wasn't favorable on the MDD for 70% water. That was a challenge, because at that time the current administrator wasn't for that at all. But look what it did. It kept us from going in further debt. It paid for a lot of things that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I just have, just me personally, I'm not a big proponent of I look at government, any fee that government collects, whether it's for a product or a service, is a tax. And the more that we tax that to create a reserve or create whatever, that's money that we're taking away from our residents, our citizens, our businesses. And if we have the ability to sustain our rates and supplement that like we have been through the MDD or whatever, if there comes a point in time 4 years down the road or whatever that we can't sustain that or we need to make changes to that, then, we need to do that. Is that the case right now? No, I think the MDD's made it pretty clear that they're committed to that 70%.
I think one of the fears is you're relying upon a board whose, structure can change, and here we go again. Now we've got to recreate and hopefully rely upon a board. I mean, it's just like this board.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it can change anytime.
It's subject to change, right?
Yeah, hoping. Go ahead.
The objective is, and from what I understand, because I have allergy to raising the rates. Okay, I just do not like it. I mean, I went through it up in the Huntsville area, and I'm getting just killed. But at the end of the day, the fund should be able to rely upon itself or stand on its own, and us not rely on an organization that can change with the wind and decide at some point, you know what, we don't want to fund the water anymore. We need to worry about streets and other types of infrastructure. Yeah. I just, if we've got the ability to make this stand on its own and it doesn't hurt, overall, it's something we need to really seriously consider. But like I said, I'm not a fan of raising rates. I have an allergy to that. I get it. But I also don't like relying upon an organization whose thought process can change with, the next set of people that walk in the door.
Yeah, waiting for a handout is not a plan.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the, let's rely on somebody else,
You're technically wrong on a handout there, Ron.
Well,
it's not a handout. It's an agreement, and there's a big difference between the two.
It's an agreement that can change, and that's a concern for me.
It is.
Handout's an entitlement.
Don't get tied up on the one phrase. The point is that it needs to be self-sufficient.
So,
And we've got a plan here. I mean, I think if we move to a 5-year plan, where we go, we are all going to admit, MDD, water and sewer are not self-sustaining right now. MDD has been helping out tremendously. But we've also got other expenses that are going to continue, and we may have to address that. You pointed out the fire and police service. That's a big chunk of money. There's other things that are out there that may have to be addressed. But at the end of the day, water and sewer ought to stand by themselves. It ought to be, yes, it's operated by the city, but treated like a business. With the zero we're not making profit. We want to get it as that line at zero. But we got to pay the bills.
Yeah, the idea of the whole SIP was.
You make it
that-
sound like the bills aren't being paid. They are.
The idea of the SIP, though, was to manage and level and plan over time, and that's what we're talking about doing here.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And there's a SIP for the MDD as well, which involves all of this. The SIP, the CIP is the same for the MDD, and MDD is planning and making arrangements for it. If MDD wasn't, then I would be, you know what? You're absolutely right. But that's not the case. It's not like we have one, CIP over here for the city and one over here for the MDD. It's conjoined, and MDD has agreed specifically to do these things. So that's where I differ in that opinion. It's not a handout from the MDD. It's an agreement. It's an arrangement that was agreed upon and that was made. A handout's an entitlement, and this definitely is not an entitlement.
So one thing to consider is, as we continue to move into the future, we are going to build out this city. I mean, we're landlocked, right? We're gonna end up building it out. And at some point, we're going to have built all the new roads that we need to build, and we're going to have the wastewater treatment plant that we need to have. And yes, before anybody says there's, roads that we redo or pipes or whatever, I get it, there'll be maintenance. But there won't be initial burdens. At some point in the future, we're going to get to the point to where we're built out and now we're maintaining. And so I think when that point comes, then we're going to be looking at MDD and we're saying, okay, how can MDD help improve quality of life for our residents? And we're right back where we are right now, in that MDD is going to absolutely be used to offset other additional burdens on the residents. And that's an okay thing, because
Or provide new things like parks, recreation.
But again,
Well,
at some point,
they've provided
you're
this.
going to run out of places to put them.
Correct.
I mean,
got
I'm
the
just
big
saying,
detention ponds
there's going to become a point where we're not going to be able to add new things. We'll absolutely still have to maintain, and we know there's a shelf life for everything. But I don't think that once we're built out with those MDD funds, they're going to be completely absorbed by strictly maintaining those things that are already on the shelf. I think there will be a surplus. And so what we're looking at right now, and I don't want to overstate short term, but we might be looking at right now a problem that has a finite end to it, in other words. And listen, as a business person, I'm all for having water and sewer be as true as possible to our residents, but it's still true if we're spending the residents' MDD tax dollars, we're still spending their dollars to pay for water and sewer. That's still money that we collected for the residents to use for the residents. Whether we use it to build a new park or whether we use it for water.
But they're purchasing a product, which means the individuals who are purchasing the product. I mean, this is the idea of the enterprise fund is it's literally a business that sits over here and ought to run on a zero, unlike a business which you really want to have profit, this should operate on a zero basis. Start the year at zero, end the year at zero. And yes, I understand that's not
But
really
it is with the MDD, it is. If we
But
didn't
that's
have
just
the-
outside money you keep
No,
shoveling
it's not.
into
It's an
it.
agreement. It's an arrangement that was made between the MDD and the city. It's not that they're over there saying, oh, we need more money, here you go. There's a plan in play. I mean, if we didn't have a 5-year plan or looking even 10 years down the road, the city has never done that before.
You're right.
The staff has done a phenomenal job in bringing together a CIP, not just for water and sewer, but for the whole city, which covers the infrastructure on roads. I mean, we would have never even been able to come close to any of this without the Blyle's help and insight and giving us direction and all the things that we needed for infrastructure and pipes that we needed to be looking at that weren't on the agendas before or even a thought process. So if we didn't have the agreement with or arrangement with the MDD to offset our water funds. It's no different than free trash service. It's a product that our residents receive. But it's one that we've chosen as a city to pay because it doesn't really matter how much lower we make their taxes, the appraisal districts continue to go up. So by giving them a service or giving them things that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise, I find that to be a huge benefit in living in the city.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just hypersensitive right now because, and it's, we talked about this a little bit in the joint workshop. I don't want to spend any more money than what we absolutely have to this year. And I certainly don't want to ask the residents to pay anything more than what we absolutely have to. This has been a tough year. It's going to continue to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year for at least a little bit of next year. I mean, listen, there are people that lost their jobs. There are people that have been out of work for however, and while I get it, maybe it's only $5 a month, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15, but that coupled with, you know, whatever other little things that get tacked on, is just an increased cost to somebody who is going through a really tough time right now. And so for me, I think maybe that's, you know, you would think the guy who's the you know, the business guys up here would be saying, yeah, charge them the right amount of money. But I don't want to ask our residents for more money right now unless we absolutely have to. It's just, it's horrible timing for starters.
As John mentioned a moment ago, this is something council could put off a year and take some time to look at it closer.
Yeah.
Can I make
we're looking at, you know, maybe $4 or $5 a month for a resident, but we're looking in
For
some
business,
cases $200 to $500 a month difference for a business. I mean, I'm fortunate as a business, I don't have to worry about that, but I know that there's businesses right now that, you know, they're 1 month away.
That could be an employee.
Absolutely.
That could be an employee that you either get to hire or don't get to hire based on your water rates going up. So you were gonna say something.
Well, I was going to offer to make closing statements and go sit down. So just a couple things. I don't like rate increases either. I don't like tax increases. I'm pretty conservative. You know, there's been a lot of good points made tonight. You need more information, we can get you what you need. The staff's been great to work with, by the way, as usual. So if MDD continues to fund every year some of these projects, then you don't have to have a rate increase. And like Kathy said, you know, we can look at this next year. Maybe it is a bad time to consider this with COVID and the economy and all that stuff, but I would like to remind you, I'm just your consultant, and so I have no vote, I have no agenda. I just did what the staff asked me to do, and whatever information you need, or anybody, we'll get it for you. So if you have any more questions for me.
No, as usual, y'all always do great work. So it's not, we're not shooting the messenger. We appreciate the.
Brenton can come up here.
I was going to say, when you first started out and said that you were just a
presentation.
messenger, I was going to say, well, you know what happened to messengers.
Thank you, Councilman, I appreciate that.
No.
Anyway, whatever you need, we'll get for you, and I know you're probably going to talk about this at the council workshop next week. If you need me to be there, I'll be glad to be there, so.
That might. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks for
John.
the offer.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Okay, so that should move us then into, my computer died, so I hope I don't have to pull it back up. That should move us into item 11. I guess we could adjourn the meeting since my computer died, right?
You can try that.
Discussion and possible action regarding the funding amount for the purchase of a firearms training simulator from asset forfeiture funds.
Take a motion to approve?
Second?
Second? Yeah, I think everybody jumped on that.
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod to approve. I have a second by Councilman Christie. Do we have any discussion? I'll bring it up for discussion then. Not that I don't think we should do this. How are we doing this? Is this going to be included in the budget? Is that what this is?
This is actually, all you are doing is approving the writing of the check. This money comes from the funds where the police collect from, what
The
is it?
asset forfeiture.
Yeah,
asset forfeitures, and by law, only the police chief makes the decision of what to buy and whether to buy. But from an auditing standpoint and an accounting standpoint, Lisa can't write the check because it exceeds the $15,000.
And
It's not
also-
in the budget at
Right.
all.
Well, so my only concern about that is 3 years from now, if somebody decides they want to go back and go see, are they not able to transparently go back and see where we spent $28,000 on
It's in
this?
its own liability account, so when you expense the funds, it would hit that liability account and it would show a transaction.
And it would show a line
It
item
is
for that
tracked,
amount?
yeah.
Okay,
It's yeah.
okay.
And asset forfeiture funds can only be used for certain things.
Sure. I don't disagree we should spend the money, but it goes back to how are we
Tracking it.
tracking it and
Right.
disclosing it?
Yeah, and that's really why it's in front of you.
Gotcha. Okay, any more discussion?
Y'all all seen it?
I was
No, I have
ready
not.
to give a presentation and everything.
Yeah,
That was
I
fast.
unfortunately was slammed that week.
I was myself, I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool if some of the residents could get to play with it someday.
I agree.
I
that'd
think
be
that's the
something
plan,
to do.
Troy.
I think that'd be something to do, Troy, from a community, involvement perspective is,
National
Well-
Night Out.
yeah,
We-
or even some other nights. I mean,
That's true.
We're discussing the Citizens Academy, and that is something that we're going to utilize it for.
Just don't let anybody break it.
Hopefully not.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 12, these are non-action items that we strictly are presenting again for transparency. Kathy, do you want to go over this?
Yes, you'll see the budgeted purchase orders over 15,000 that have been approved already. Water plant 2 booster pump for 30,200. The Tahoe emergency equipment, 14,297. Desk improvements, this is at the front desk. Those are completed, $30,000. And the Wellman Road trunk line upgrade at $160,000. That was budgeted in the current year. Authorizations that were within my limit, but were not planned in the budget. The recruiting for the project manager, there's that fee, $11,395. And some SSR meter and antenna upgrades that we needed to make, $10,750. And that's it.
Anybody got any questions for Kathy on any of those? Do we have a completion timeline on our Wellman Road trunk line? Do we have any sort of a projected date for completion?
I don't, but I can follow up and see where that is and get that for you.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, item 13, discussion and possible action to approve the accounts payable for June 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilman Fletcher, a second by Councilman McLeod. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 14, our second citizens forum. Didn't have anybody sign up to speak. So we will move to item 15, which is our city administrator updates.
I actually have none tonight, unless you have any questions about our monthly reports, which are in your agenda pack.
My computer died, so I don't have any
Okay.
questions. Anybody else? No? Okay, we'll then move to item 16, which is council inquiry. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
I am good tonight.
Councilman? Councilman Christie?
same.
Councilman Fletcher?
I just want to say, again, thanks to Blyle and Associates and our staff for working hard on our water rate study, and I know that they're still working on our impact fee study as well. And so I appreciate all the hard work and that our staff has done. Lisa, appreciate, of course, this is your busy time of year. Not that any other time is as busy, but thank you for all the updates and everything you do in keeping us up to date here during budget. That's it.
I'm at 77%, so I'm willing to keep on going here. But I will pass.
Since I didn't get to be here last meeting, I want to say a special thank you to Miss Debbie, to Councilman Fletcher, Councilman Brott, the rest of the Civic Club for an awesome 4th of July event, city staff that pitched in our police department that was there, the council members that were able to make it. Man, I thought that was a great event. I was a little worried right at first. It started off kind of slow, but in the middle of it, there were a lot of residents there. There were a lot of kids there. They were having fun. It was very well spread out. Everybody was safe. Everybody was social distancing. But man, you could just tell that the community really, at least the ones that were there, really enjoyed it and had a good time. And so I can't thank everybody enough for that. I thought that it was very timely and needed and turned out to be a great event. And I had a good time myself. It was a lot of fun for my kids. So other than that, I don't have anything else. I just didn't get a chance to say that last time. So thank you to everybody that made that happen. So, okay, well then if we don't have anything else, then I will adjourn the meeting at 9:01. Thanks, everybody.